Hey, thanks for joining us online. Here at Flatirons, we seek to bring the awesome life of Christ to a lost and broken world. If you want to connect with us on social media, the links are below. Now let's jump into our series, Can People Really Change?
It's so good. Last night, I looked around and people were actually like busting a move in church. It's just great. That's a good song. Hey, last week we kicked off a new series. Before we get into that, I was going to call a timeout. Every once in a while in the life of your family or your marriage or your church, something happens and you need to just take a timeout and go, that was really good. And I just want to say this. Last weekend here at Flatirons, at all 4 of our campuses, it was just really good. And if you missed last weekend because you don't really love Jesus, if for whatever reason, I'm kidding, go get online and watch it, especially the last half. Across our 4 campuses, we had 697 people be baptized, which is just amazing, you know. And a lot of you were some of you all, and then again, at all of our campuses, we had a table with a thin red line down the middle of it, and around 2,000 men took a step forward and said, from now on, I'm going to bow before Jesus, make him the authority of my life. So give it up for those men right now, you know. It's a moment, all right? And so again, I don't know how the setups were at all the campuses, but I just turned around and I watched it, and this is the first time we've ever had men come forward with their girlfriends or with their wives or with their kids or something like that. But it was really moving. I saw this one man. He was probably in his early 20s, and he knelt down and he signed his name. And I'm hoping it was his wife behind him because once they stood up, whatever that meant to them, they just started making out right here in the middle of the auditorium. And I don't know where the rest of the day went, but I'm pretty sure we had a baby made in our parking lot last week. And so our kids ministry is going to get overwhelmed in about 9 months. And you're welcome, all right, there. So, no, it was just really great. The other part of that is that sometimes whenever we do baptism weekend or we do Thin Red Line week or something like that, I think it ought to come with a disclaimer. And here's what I mean by that. If you decided to get baptized last week or you took that step, you know, in trying to be a better man, the warning should be you're probably going to have just a horrible week. Because anytime that you try to move off of stuck and like the way it's always been, you try to move towards something good, it's like the devil comes after you and just slaps you down. And I've heard some great stories about good things that have happened this past week, but I've also heard some really hard things have happened as people try to lean into following Jesus and try to lead their families better. And here's what I'd say to you men and the women connected to those men, don't give up. All right, don't give up. You know, it took us a long time to get this screwed up. It's going to take a while to kind of unscrew everything. Is that a term? It is now. So anyway, so just keep on working. Don't give up. Get back up and keep on going. So I've heard some great stories and some hard stories. And I've heard from men all over our country, East Coast to West Coast, where men's groups are saying, you know, like there's 50 men in this one state and 50 men in this other state going, our whole church, all the men in our church, we're doing this too. And so it's just making a difference. I got an email yesterday morning before I came to church from this lady. It's just not men that are being affected. This woman emailed me from Indianapolis, and she said, when you were teaching last weekend about, you know, getting out of that cage and getting out of that stuck place in your life where you're a prisoner, she goes, I was actually living that. Last Sunday morning, I decided to walk away from my home where my husband continues to beat me up, and she actually went and got free from that. So that was courage, and she's listening to this right now, and in a minute I want you to encourage her, but let me tell you another story I got. I got an email last Sunday afternoon after church, and he may be here. He gave me permission to share his story. I'm going to leave his name out. This is what he said. He says, I'm a 2-time combat veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom. I always got in a lot of trouble as a kid. I put myself back in that cage and became a heavy drunk and addicted to various stimulants. My son was born, and even still, I didn't quit drinking and using until I was unsuccessful in blowing my head off January 4th, 2015. January 5th of 2015, I stepped out of my cage and haven't touched anything since. I've been in a 3-year battle fighting for my 3-year-old son. I take medication every day and go to therapy for PTSD. Here's what part made me stop. I'm 26. I've made every wrong decision possible. I've danced with the devil more times than I ever did my ex-wife. I opened more whiskey bottles than I ever did my Bible. I clung to drugs tighter than I ever hugged my son. Although I'm sober and have had some stability now, I did not achieve it with God's help. I forced my success with a chip on one shoulder and self-hatred on the other. For the last 5 years, I've been disgusted by the man staring back at me in the mirror. The last 3 weeks have been the first time I've consistently gone to church, and I've been more at peace and more with Christ. last Saturday, I kneeled and signed and genuinely forgave myself for everything I've done to hurt myself and those around me. I'm eternally grateful to have been at that service, and I wanted to say thank you. See you next Saturday. So that young man is probably in this room, and that woman in Indianapolis is listening. Will you encourage them right now? So good. So here's what I want to do. So that thin red line thing, I believe God's doing a movement, not just in our church, but across the country. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. If you're one of those people, and I'm not going to limit this to men, if you want to keep on going with this whole concept of fixing our eyes on Jesus and linking arms with some other men and taking better care of our families, forgiving ourselves, things like that, they're trying to teach me this stuff, this social media stuff. I think it's witchcraft. But anyway, but I'm trying my best. So if you have a Twitter account, just follow me on Twitter, and I'm going to try to reach out a couple times a week, just give you a word of encouragement, keep on going, here's what God's teaching me, and then we'll all be linked together, and rather than just once a week we touch base. But if we could just continue, and then you could feedback to me what's going on in your lives, that would really help me, and it would help you stay connected. So if you have a chance to do that, do that. So last week we started this series where we're asking this question, can people really change, right? And when we say can people really change, usually what we mean is can people act different? Can people treat each other different and act different and behave different? But we're not just talking about behavior modification when we're talking about change, because everybody can modify their behavior for a while, right? I mean, we can something happen and then we get really, really convicted about something, but unless something changes inside, unless you change, it's a matter of time until something happens, right? Well, we can pull it off for a week or two, maybe in a year or two or something like that. But if nothing changes on the inside, something's going to happen. Someone's going to blindside you, going to ambush you, is going to pull your trigger, whatever that is. And in that unguarded moment, that unchanged part of you is just going to come vomiting out and usually land on people that had nothing to do with what's going on inside of you. They're just in the way. And they kind of get obliterated by something inside of you that never changed. You just faked it as best you could for a while. And eventually somebody's going to say to you, or you're going to look in the mirror and say that same old familiar thing. See, you'll never change. You didn't change, you'll never change. Right? So the metaphor we looked at last week was this. There's parts of our life, maybe not all of our life, but parts of our life, certain relationships in our life, we would look at them, and this is how we describe them. They're stuck. They're stuck, and it's kind of like a bird in a cage. It just sits there, and this is my life. It's always going to be this way. Or maybe a prisoner, in a prison. Like my life is this by this, and I try not to think about anything out there because this is how it's always going to be. And so what we're looking at in this series all the way through Thanksgiving is this: what would it take, right? What would need to change to move from this is my life and it's stuck and it's going to be like this till I die? What would it take to move it towards this thing called freedom? What would it take to move it from it feels like death to move to life? And is it possible for a person to really change inside so much so that what comes out of us and how we interact with the people around us actually changes? And even if that's possible, how? How does that happen? How does a person change so much on the inside that what comes out of them actually is totally different, like a different person? And this is what we're going to start here, and we're going to start here every week in this, is that something or someone must do something for you that you cannot do for yourself, all right? There's some things that you cannot do, and here's how I know that. Because you would have already done them. All right, there's parts of our life that are so stuck and so whatever, all right, that you go, listen, if I could change it, I already would have, but I need somebody outside of myself to change that because I can't do it. And that's the other part of this, is that something inside of me needs to change. There's something inside of me that I've tried, to help myself or fix myself, and I just cannot do that part of my life. I need somebody else to do something in me that I cannot fix myself. And of course, we know that's Jesus, right? I mean, that's what Jesus promises. And we looked at this one verse, and we're just going to really look at one verse again today, the same verse, but this guy named Paul, who writes a big chunk of the Bible, who had been changed by Jesus, all right? He describes what Jesus has done for us that only he can do. And then he kind of transitions over to, and if he did that for us, now here's our part, all right? It's both. So here's what Paul writes. If you were here last week, we hit this hard, right? It says, for freedom, Christ has set us free. So whatever Jesus has done for us on the cross and his teachings and his resurrection, all that, right? It was for this reason. This part of my life is stuck, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do for you so that you can get unstuck. So for freedom, Christ has set us free. Now here's our response. Stand firm, therefore. And do not submit again to a yoke of slavery like you used to be. Don't go back there. Don't go back to the cage. Stand firm and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. So Jesus says, listen, I'm going to do this for you, what only I can do, and then there's some stuff that you need to do. Now, this is really where it falls off the rails for a lot of Christians, all right? Please hear this. Without Jesus, we can do nothing. So you can try to fix your life, but without Jesus, it's impossible. You can try to get sober. You can try to break that addiction. You can try to repair that relationship. You've tried before. Without Jesus, you can do nothing. But please understand this, all right, is that if you just decide I'm going to sit on my couch and do nothing, it doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. All right? It's both. If you say, I need this grace in my life, I need Jesus' presence in my life, there's part of it that going, and my response to that goes like this. Here's how we say it, all right? Grace on the inside, Jesus and his power and whatever, and change on the inside, always leads to hard work on the outside if we want anything in our lives to change for the better. That's just true. Jesus says, listen, if I'm on the inside, I will make a difference on the outside. If you're not willing to do anything on the outside, am I really there? So we're looking at this thing called grace. It always starts with grace. And there's two levels of grace we've been talking about in here. There's this grace that forgives you and sets you free and reconnects you to God. You cannot do that for yourself. He has to do that. So that's that level of grace. Then another level of grace goes like this. And then there's grace that spiritually changes. And spiritually means inside. Like the real you, your soul, your identity, who you really are. Jesus says, I'm going to change you, he promises, and then I'm going to empower you to do what you could not do on your own. It always starts there, okay? So it starts with grace, and then it goes back to grace again, but again, we don't stop there. The next part of this is vision. What would your life look like? And this is what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at a part of our life going, what would your life look like? What would that relationship look like? What would that thing look like if it was free? If it lined up with what Jesus says is right and true and good, followed by this. You got a vision for it. Now, do you want it enough to do what it takes? Everybody can dream. What are you willing to do to see that become a reality in your life? And again, that hasn't changed anything until you actually get up out of this room and go work a strategy. What do you mean? I got to start doing things different. I've done it this way. My strategy so far this is it. I've landed right here. So I need to begin to do something different. So let's look at all 5 of those. Because if you came in today in our campuses, they try to hand you a program, and some of you just look at them and go, I don't do programs, all right? So here's what I'm going to ask you to do at all of our campuses, all right? Right now, okay, and it's going to get awkward, like who's going to go first, so just make your kids do it, all right? Go get one of these, all right? Wherever you are, just look at the kid in here and go get it for the whole row, right? So go get one of these. It's going to get, there, people are going, so move, all right? Because you're going to fill in the blanks here. So there's these 5 blanks on your paper, and they're labeled grace, vision, intent, and strategy. Now, this is really, really important, okay? There's grace. See, you should have got one on the way in. That's all I'm saying, all right? So this is really important because it's not, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 or 5. We need all of them, because here's what I mean by that. If you leave out the first 2 and just go with the bottom 3, vision, intent, and strategy, that's just self-help. Right? I don't need Jesus to change my life. I got a vision. I went to this seminar or whatever that is, and I'm working my strategy, and by 2 years from now, I should be a millionaire, all right? Good for you, all right? That's self-help, and it doesn't work. We've tried to help ourselves, okay? So without Jesus, it's just self-help. But if you just do these 2 and then don't lean into these 3, nothing gets better in your life till after your funeral, right? I'm saved, I'm connected to Jesus, I feel better about myself on the inside, and I feel God's presence in my life. My marriage is still in the toilet. My kids still hate me. I'm still addicted to everything else was, but as soon as I die, it's going to be good, See, I want more than that. And Jesus does too, all right? Jesus says, I have come that you may have life, and life to the full, abundant life. And he wasn't just talking about after our funeral. We're talking from the moment we meet him right through our funeral and into eternity. Jesus says, I want your life to change for the better. And so what we're doing in this series is we're taking the most important areas of our life and then running them through those five steps, right? And what would it take to see whatever part of our life we're going to look at, to move from vision? Wouldn't that be great if, what would it take to actually have that part of our life and go, that's my life now. That's my reality. So in a minute, you're gonna be filling in the blanks. Yeah, just wait, and we actually get out on time this week. Don't get used to it. All right, so at the end of the service, all right, there's no more music, okay? I'm gonna pray and then leave, okay? But you might, because we end on time, you might have time just to sit here for a little bit and go, I'm gonna wait till the whole service is over, and then I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna fill in what what God's trying to teach me. So today we're going to look at a part of your life. We're going to look at 7 areas of our life from now on Thanksgiving. We're just going to start with one of the big ones, all right? Probably one of the most important areas of your life. Today we're going to talk about family. And I don't know what family looks like for you. You may be married, you might be single. You all had parents of one kind or another at some time in your life. So you might have kids. They might be little, they might be old. Yeah, you have brothers and sisters, whatever that is. But in the next few minutes, you're going to zero in on one of those. And you may be going, my whole family is jacked up. Too much, okay? You just have to narrow it down going, I'm just going to talk about my sister. That's what I'm going to be thinking about, whatever that is in your life. Okay, now let's talk family and get really, really honest. Because some of you are already in a panic because the Thanksgiving countdown has started. It's less than 7 weeks away, okay? Run. So anyway, when it comes to family, there are few more people in this world that you love more than your family, right? I mean, you would do anything for these people. You know, what do you need? How can I help? I wouldn't do this for anybody else. You need a kidney? Here's one, all right? Whatever that is, I'm telling you, I would do things for them because they're my family. I love them, and I would do anything for them, on one hand. On the other hand, there's nobody on this planet that drives you crazier than the people that you live with, right? I mean, there's just nobody that makes you angrier, that frustrates you more. And how about this? There's no one that you speak worse to than your family, all right? If you spoke to anybody else in the world like you speak to your mom, right? Whatever that is, they would fire you, they would punch you, you'd be arrested, but you go, that's my mom, that's us, all right? Listen, they're the best of times and they're the worst of times. You getting more narrow now on the relationship because you've narrowed it down pretty specific, right? There was a time when you had a relationship or a kind of a connection with this person in your family where you would look at it and go, this is beautiful. Maybe it was when you first got married. Maybe it was when you first had kids. Maybe it was, well, I don't know what it is. You would look at that relationship and go, you know, it couldn't get any better than this. It's going to be like this forever. Do you remember? You might have to go back a decade or two. But there was a time when you thought, this is perfect. And now the person you're thinking about right now, you're sitting here thinking about that same person going, it's different. Something changed. And you can't really put your finger on the calendar when it changed. Maybe you can, but it's changed and not for the better. If you were to go to lunch today with somebody and they say, hey, how are you and so-and-so doing? And they bring up the name of that person you're thinking about, you'd probably sit there and go, it's not great. I mean, it's not horrible. You know, we don't do what we used to do, but I don't know. It's just what it is. It used to be good. What happened? I don't know. I'm not sure, but I would not say that my relationship with them is good. You know, years ago, I never thought it'd be like this. It's not what I hoped for. It's not what I imagined that it would be. Yeah, we haven't talked in a long time. We're actually moving further apart. We're not getting closer. It's getting worse. Here's what some of us would say about a person in our life that we're related to that used to be the tightest person in our life. Here's what we would say, all right? I'm just done. I've given up. I tried, and I've just accepted. That's the way, she's never going to change. That's just the way it is. My dad is always going to be like that, and I can't handle it. So, I just said, I'm just done, and we haven't spoken in years. I don't know what that is for you. But if we're on this side of that going, I still have this idea that I want to be connected to them, here's what we know. If something doesn't happen, if something doesn't change, it is a matter of time until this shaky relationship gets shakier and starts moving apart and separating and then loses contact totally, and then somebody's going to file, and then that relationship is over and it's dead. Yeah, maybe not today. It's probably not going to happen this week or maybe not even this month. You probably make it through the holidays, but just play it out 6 months. If it keeps going the way it's going, another year like this, another 2 years, it's a matter of time until this relationship that you love so much, it's just gone. Right? Now, I've done this long enough. I know that there's half the room is having one conversation with me in your head, and the other half of the room is having a different conversation. And here's what it is, all right? Some of you, this is what you're saying to me in your head. You're saying this, all right? I don't think that can or will ever happen to us. And then you look at the person next to you going, it will never happen to us. Good for you. You're naive. Okay, so right? So some of you going, we'll always be like this. Okay, here's the other half of the room. Here's what you're saying, all right? I never thought it could or would happen to us, but it did. That's all of us. That will never happen to us, all right? Or I didn't think it would happen to us, but it did. Think about this. Very few of us who went into a relationship, started dating, got married, had kids, whatever a family looks like for you, all right? Very few of us thought we would end up with what we got. None of us got married thinking, this got about 4 years and then we'll be divorced. None of us did that. It happened, okay? I mean, every one of us, when we signed up for whatever we signed up for, right? We're like that song, all right? I know everybody else is falling apart, but this is going to be the greatest love story the world has ever seen. We're going to rewrite the books on love. We're always going to be like this. We always look at everybody else's family and go, that happens to people like them. That happens to other parents and their kids. That happens to other marriages. We think it always happens to somebody else until it happens to us. And then we look around and go, what happened? What changed? Right? It's a matter of time. Unless something happens starting now. The second law of thermodynamics, all right? And so all you scientists are going to go, man, he's smart. I know, all right? Yeah, so this is how the universe runs, okay? All right, so people much smarter than me came up with this, but it's true about the galaxies, it's true about your cat. It's just true, all right? It goes like this. If left alone and there is not a constant introduction of outside energy, everything will move from order to disorder and chaos, everything. Right? If you don't feed your dog, just leave it alone, leave it there in the yard for a while, eventually it's not gonna go well. It's like anything. If you don't invest in it, it will fall apart and die. That's just the way the world works. And by the way, God agrees with that. He even goes so far to say this, all right? It's the same is true of human relationships, including those that we would call family. If you just want it to die and move into chaos and fall apart, just don't do anything. It'll be fine. It'll take care of itself. No, it won't. It'll die. In chapter 3 of the Bible, we looked at this a couple weeks ago. God sat Adam down and goes, let me just tell you how sin has so jacked up the world. Here's what your life looks like from now until you die. If you want anything good in your life to happen, if you want anything to live and prosper, if you want anything to provide for your family and protect your family, you're going to have to get up every day of your life and work hard. Because if you don't, the moment you say, it's fine, I'm going to take a day off, something will come into your garden and it will grow up and it will choke out the thing that you were going to provide to your family. That's true with gardening, that's true with farming, that's true with marriage, that's true with kids, that's true with friendship, it's true with family. If you want to see it die, just put it on cruise control and ignore it. It'll take care of itself. Right? Jesus described it this way. This is one of my favorite illustrations Jesus ever gave, all right? He says this, and he's actually talking about our life with God spiritually, but he's going to use a metaphor that everybody, whether you're a Christian or not, would go, well, that's just true. Here's what Jesus taught. He says, when a strong man, fully armed, guards his own palace, guards his own house, his goods are safe. So if you protect and you are fully armed and you're prepared, everything that is yours is going to be safe, all right? But when one's stronger than the person who's running the house, when one's stronger than he attacks him and overcomes him, he, the stronger attacker, he takes away his armor in which he trusted and divides his spoil. Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters. So Jesus makes it really, really clear right here, going, listen, there's just one option, one or two. You're either working for it or you're killing it. You're either actively taking care of it, or you're actively working against it. There's no middle ground. It's all or nothing, all right? And what he's saying is the same thing is true about your relationship, how you have to guard it between you and God, because otherwise things will drift in, and all of a sudden you realize that you and God are a million miles apart. He says, I'm going to use an illustration that everybody in here knows because we all lived it. This is how a family works. It says this, if you don't take care of and invest and protect your marriage and protect your kids and protect your home, it is a matter of time until somebody says, I want what you have. Listen, I don't know what your neighborhood's like. I locked my door today. I have pretty good neighbors, but I also have pretty good stuff inside, all right? And I want to hold on to it. My wife is at home. I want to protect my house. I want to be on my guard because here's what's going to happen. If not, somebody's going to come in and go, I want your stuff. So on a family level, there's somebody out there that goes, I want your marriage. I want your wife. I want your husband. I want your daughter. And I love how Jesus says that. And then he'll take them and he'll divide the spoil, which literally translates, he'll take what is yours and spend it on himself the way he wants. It's a matter of time, if you're not on your guard, till somebody's going to take your husband or your wife or your son or your daughter, and they're going to spend them on themselves. They're going to use them up. Unless we actively take control and make some changes in our life because we're asleep at the wheel. Listen to this, all right? That story is where I got this tattoo. I was like standing right here like, oh, that looks weird, doesn't it? Anyway, this is mine. Several years ago, I first read this story, and so this is the tattoo that came out of this. Si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war, prepare to fight. Okay, now, I'm looking at this, and this is everything, all right? So it's vision, intent, strategy. If you want peace, so my vision for my life is peace. I want peace. All right? The Hebrew word for peace is shalom, as God meant it to be. I want shalom at my house. I want peace with my marriage. I want peace with my children. I want peace, and as God meant it to be, with my friends and in my leadership, everything. This is my vision for my life. What would my life look like if Robin and I actually had shalom in our relationship as God meant it to be, okay? Intent. If you want peace, it's we, see we, if you want it. I want this. How bad do I want it? So we says, now here's the other thing about this. This is just so cool, all right? I wish I was smarter than this, but I just stumbled onto it. All right, so I'm sitting at my laptop, and I'm writing this message, all right? And if you want peace, see we, now look at this. VIS. That's what we talked about last week. Vision, intent, strategy. It's like, it's been right there the whole time. I'm slow, all right? But right? It's like, now it's like, I can't ever forget now. So if I want, how bad do I want peace? I got to have a strategy. What is it? Prepare for war. I got to get up every day and fight for peace in my family. Every day. I have to get up and go, okay, I have to get out of bed and go, okay, what would bring Robin and I closer towards shalom? What do I need to do? I got to fight for it every day. And here's the other one, Mulan Lavi, because I'm not going to surrender. I'm not turning my marriage over to anybody. I'm not turning my character over to anybody. I'm not going to let anybody run my sexuality except Christ. It's mine, and I'm going to get out of bed every day and fight for it. And it's not always convenient. I didn't say this, I was thinking about this, all right? So 2 weeks ago, I was talking about marriage, right? I was talking about marriage and about how we got to love our wives, and next week we're going to do this whole thin red line stuff. And in the back of my mind, you guys didn't know this, but as soon as I walked off this stage, I was getting in my truck, going home, picking up Robin and the dogs, and we were going to the cabin, all right? I was looking forward to it, okay? I get home, and Robin has a headache. I'm like, okay, so I'll go by myself with the dogs. It's okay, all right? And since she goes, would you just stay home today? And I just told 15,000 people they need to love their wives better. Yes, honey, I will. I'll sit downstairs by myself all day if that's what you want. And that's what I did, all right? Because I love my wife and I want peace. I'm so awesome. All right, so my point is, I'm not saying it's easy and you're going to go home, it's going to feel good every day. When you go, I'm trying to serve my wife. I'm trying to serve my husband. I'm trying to serve my kids. I'm trying to honor my parents. All right, it's going to be really, really, really hard. And that's nothing compared to what some of us walk home to every day, right? But if we want the most important relationships in our life to actually live and be good and grow and get better, we're going to have to actively do something every day, because if not, it is a matter of time. Until finally, I go to the cabin so many times, and Robin basically says, just stay there, right? It doesn't matter if you're here anyway. It's hard. And so we have to go home and we have to actively say, I'm going to make a choice and a decision here, not because it feels good, but because my long-term plan is I want peace. So let's take whatever family relationship you're thinking about right now. It might be your husband or your wife, or your ex-husband, your ex-wife, so you can kind of look back, right? It might be what's going on between you and your kids. It might be between what's going on between you and your parents, or maybe it's between you and your brother or your sister. And let's take that relationship down the only path to change, and we're going to start in the same place always, grace. All right? So you got a relationship in mind, okay? Just narrow it down to one that it's not dead yet, but it's a matter of time till it is, all right? We're going to start with grace. Remember this, grace on the inside, so change me, Jesus, on the inside, always leads to hard work on the outside. So we're going to take this relationship, and we're going to talk about our part of this, all right, in this relationship with grace. So here's the first level of grace. There's this grace, right, that forgives you, and the grace that sets you free and reconnects you to God, okay? So hold on to that. There's a level of grace that forgives me, sets me free, and connects me to God. And then there's another level of grace that spiritually changes me on the inside and then empowers me to do what I cannot do on my own. So we're talking about two levels of grace in our life. Forgiveness, freedom, connection to God, empowering us and changing us. Now, we all love to hear about grace in church. Like, just talk about forgiveness a lot. Talk about how much God loves us and we're all going to heaven after we die. Talk about that. That's really, really great. But here's the thing we tend to skip over when it comes to forgiveness. We don't really want to talk about the reason we need forgiveness. Because here's a reality check, all right? There is a reason that there's some things in our life we need to be forgiven for. That we love to talk about freedom, but in order to talk about freedom, you have to talk about what you have to get set free from. We have some things in our life that own us, that are chained to us, when we can't get free from them. And when we talk about being connected to God, there's something blocking our connection to God. I'm not talking about going to heaven or salvation. That's guaranteed, no problem. I'm talking about a relationship with Jesus. I am saved. He feels like he's a million miles away. You ever feel like that? I don't know if he even hears me anymore, okay? Because there's something blocking it, and I need forgiveness. And I'm not talking about the level of forgiveness that, well, nobody's perfect and everybody makes mistakes, that kind of forgiveness. No, I'm going to use a very politically incorrect word here. Buckle up, ready? I want to talk real quick about sin. So, oh, I hate it when you talk about sin. I know, me too, because it's just so condemning, right? It ruins everything. So when I talk about sin, here's what I'm talking about today, all right? We all have done something, or we've all held on to something, or we've all believed a truth that is different than who God says we are, what we're worth, and what is true about another person. God has said, this is who you are, this is what you're worth, this is what I want for your life, and it's true. This is who this person is, this is what they're worth, and this is what I feel about them, and this is what I want for their life, all right? And then you've looked at that and said, I'm going to go with something else. All right, I know what you say about me and about her. I'm going to define them differently. And I have a new truth about me and a new truth about them. And then out of that truth that is different than what God says is true, I've acted, I've done things to myself and to other people. And the fallout of that has followed me, right? Some things that have defined me, they don't agree with God, but I've allowed things to happen in my life, and that's now my life. There's some things in my life I have to be set free from. There are things that I have done for so long, I've believed are true for so long, it's almost like I'm addicted to them. I'm addicted to shame. I'm just addicted to feeling guilty all the time and being afraid of everything. And it's like they own me. I'm chained up to this habit or whatever that is, and it's interfering with a lot, and I have to be set free. And until those things are unlocked in my life, this whole idea of being close to God just seems impossible. So we're going to run that. We're going to run us, our part of this, through that need for grace filter. Now, please hear this, all right? When I talk about our part in this, there are two parts. There are two sides to every story. I know that. But we're not in charge of the other half of the story. We can't change people or fix people or make people do anything or respond, right? All we can do is go, I got to look at my part in this, okay? So here's the question we're going to start with whatever relationship you're thinking about. Here's the question. What has God said is true about you and about this person? All right? What has God said is true about you? And this other person that you're thinking about, what has God said is true about them? Very specifically, that person you're thinking about. And what have you believed, what have you held on to, right, about yourself or someone else, and out of that, you've done things because you're holding on to something different. You've done things to them, or you've done things to yourself, or you have allowed things to be done to you. For example, God says you have this much value and this much worth, but then that happened. You got beat up, you got abused. And so you accepted that for years of my life. That's just my role. I guess that's my place in this relationship, to be a punching bag or to be a victim or to be a piece of whatever, right, that's not worth sticking around for. And you took on that identity, and so you've allowed things to happen to you for years and years and years because that's who you are. That's that woman in Indianapolis. I'm sure the first time when she got married, she did not think her husband was going to punch her in the face. But after 20 years, she just accepted it. She doesn't agree with what God says is true about her. Right? And now she's starting to. See, we all have baggage, right? We all have baggage, call it shame or past, regret or fear or insecurity, that intentionally or unintentionally, we are dragging it. We drug it into this marriage. We drag it home from work every day, and we sit at the dinner table, and then we throw it at our kids every day. How about this? Is there something that you're doing? It's a habit, or it's an addiction, or it's a behavior. There's this emotional trigger that every time it goes off, you just absolutely go off, and it controls you. And deep down inside, you know it's destroying you and destroying your family, but it's been a part of your life for so long, you cannot even imagine what your life would look like if you didn't do that every day. And you tell yourself, it's not affecting anybody, and it's no big deal, but you know that it is. You even tell yourself, and you don't even believe this, I could stop doing that if I really wanted to. Right? But it's not going to go away. I don't care how many times we tell ourselves, it's no big deal. It is. So what I want to do is I want to look at an example of, it's no big deal, how that ruins everything, all right? And the example I'm going to give you, all right, it may not be your thing, but you can listen to this and go, that's not my thing, but this other thing is my thing, and I can do the math and make the connection, okay? So Jesus, in all four of the Gospels, the biographies of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he uses this illustration in every one of them several times, and he says this, being locked up and being angry and bitter and hating a person if you do that long enough, and I'm not talking about this afternoon somebody really ticked you off and you yelled at them and then you made up and had dinner together. I'm not talking about that. That's just called life. I'm talking about there's something that happened to you and you've been holding on to it and you get angrier as the years go by. You get more bitter. You hate this person. It owns you. Everything in your life is being affected. He says that kind of hatred and bitterness is the same thing as being locked in a literal jail. I am locked up in bitter and anger and hatred because of what they did to me, right? He also says that the way out of jail and the way out of bitterness and hatred, it's the same thing. Forgiveness, and by the way, in the Greek language, the word forgiveness and cancel a debt, it's the same word, right? It's the same word, and the only way to get out of prison of anger and bitterness is forgiveness. Not just your need to be forgiven by another person or from Jesus. I mean, that may be true, okay? But if you did something and you ask Jesus to forgive you, he will do that. That's not even what we're talking about. I'm talking about if I'm ever going to be free from this prison of bitterness, all right, I need to forgive the person who did this to me, right? And the only way to be free from bitterness and anger and hatred owning me is to cancel my debt. I cancel my need for you to pay me back. I cancel my need for you to make something right. And here's what's going through our heads right now. You have no idea what you're asking. I'm not saying act like it doesn't matter. It matters. It absolutely matters. But the idea of to forgive and say, you know what, I don't need anything from you and this is not going to own me anymore, it seems impossible to consider. But let's think this through. There's nothing you could do or they could do to make it right. Right? This is not, look at this, all right? Think about this. It's impossible to repay what is owed. I mean, I've had, I got to keep this way up here, right? I've had something happen to me before, and I've rehearsed all the payback schemes. Like, I'm a good shot. They wouldn't even see it. You know, I mean, hear it. I'm telling you, I've rehearsed that in mind. But then what? Then what, all right? So you've rehearsed, okay, they did this to me, I'm going to do this to them. They hurt me, I'm going to hurt them. They took this from me, I'll take theirs too, all right? And then what? And then you feel better? No, now just nothing. I'm still the same. I'm still locked up because nothing will really change. See, you have to make a decision. Here's the deals on the table, okay? Well, if you're locked up in hatred and bitterness because of what they did, and by the way, what they did was horrible. But now here's your life, and it owns you. They've been dead for 20 years, and it still owns you, what your dad did, right? Right? So you have two, right? I can cancel what they owe me and say, you can't make it right anyway, so I just got to lay it down. Or I can say, no, I'm going to stay stuck. I'm going to stay a prisoner. I'm going to stay stuck in this, and nothing is going to change. It's going to continue to ruin this marriage like it did the last marriage, and it's going to continue to kill everything between me and my son and my daughter. Okay. That's where it goes. See, you got to take it back. You got to go back to Jesus, right? We always got to go back to Jesus. We could not pay Jesus back for what we've done wrong in our life, and so God knows that. He doesn't even ask us to pay him back. He just says, "Listen, I know what you're in, what you're locked up in. I will just set you free. I will cancel what you owe me." And he forgave us, so we're forgiven. We've been set free from all the condemnation of all the things that we've done wrong or that mistakes we made along the way. But if we want to be free in this life, right? We have to do that for this person that we're thinking about, right? It's over. It's not happening anymore. I'm divorced. They're dead. I haven't talked to them in 20 years. But let me tell you, anger and bitterness and lack of forgiveness are still here, even though that person's gone. And again, I know what you're saying. You're going, I can't. I've tried before. This is impossible. I know. I am preaching to myself here because I have a very specific thing in mind for me. And if this is going to change, if I'm going to be set free from that, something that I cannot do for myself has to happen for me, and something inside of me has to change who I am to be able to do this, and then something's going to have to give me the ability and the grace and the strength to actually move forward in my life. So how can that be possible? Because it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And then he says, okay, now your part is stand firm and walk out of that jail cell, and I will give you all the grace and all the strength that you're going to need to do what I'm telling you to do. It always starts with us. What do we bring in here, and what are we carrying, and what does Jesus want to do with us before this thing ever has any hope of changing, okay? So let's just go on a hypothetical and go, you know what? We did that. I managed to do that. I've been locked up in whatever that is, and so Jesus has forgiven me, and I know he's in my life, and he's changing things in my life, and I feel really, really, really strong, stronger than I ever have in my life. Listen, if you just stop at grace and you don't go on to those next 3 steps, you're saved and you're forgiven, and after you die, you go to heaven, but this marriage isn't going to make it. And this relationship is going to continue to die. So let's go on to the next 3, right? Vision. What would your life look like? Right, if you could live it free, all right? Intent, what do you want it? Do you want it enough to do what it takes? And 3 is, what are you willing to do different? What's your new strategy? So let's just take the relationship you're thinking about, okay? And we're now down on the 3rd block there. What would your relationship that you had in mind, your marriage, your relationship with your son or daughter, your relationship with your brother or sister, whatever that is, what would it look like if God looked at it and went, that's beautiful? That's what I was thinking about. That's what I was talking about. You know, right? So like marriage, let's just talk about marriage, right? What kind of marriage would you have if like right in the middle of this talk, God somehow just split the roof open and went, time out, everybody, all right? I had this idea called marriage, and in section 14, row 3, those 2 people right there, nailing it. And what if he's pointing at you? What if he's pointing at you? What would he be pointing at? What would your marriage look like if God went, this is what I'm talking about? What would be going on during your day? What would be going on during your week? How would you talk to one another? What would you do with one another, all right? You provide for each other, you protect one another, you'd actually cherish, you actually say, maybe a couple times a day, I really love you. I don't know, it's crazy, right? All right? But what would that be like? No matter what the circumstances of your day, good or bad, what would have to be in your marriage? Or let's not even limit to that. What would have to be going on between your son and your daughter or your siblings or whatever, so at the end of the day, no matter what happened, you all were actually tighter, closer, right? Think about it, right? So, at the end of the day, you look back and go, well, that was the day our kids went off the rails and lost their mind. And then we went to the doctor, and I'm really worried about that spot on the x-ray, whatever that is. Your parents are demonic, and my in-laws are whatever. Sorry. Anyway, but they just threw stuff at us all day long. What would your relationship with these people in your life have to be like so that you actually slept in the same bed and not different rooms or different houses or different hotel rooms because you just can't be with them anymore, not after today? What would have to change, right? What would you have to hold on to so at the end of whatever you go through today, you're actually holding on to each other tighter? Here's a crazy one, all right? Imagine when you get home today during lunch or during the ball game later, I hope not during the ball game later, that Jesus rings your doorbell and goes, hey, here's what I want to do. That would freak you out, wouldn't it? All right. But let's say Jesus shows up at your house today and he goes, hey, I have a project. I'm going to follow you and your family around all week long. I'm going to go to school with you. I'm going to eat every meal with you. I'm going to be in carpool with you. I'm going to go to your soccer games, football games, baseball games. I'm just going to follow you around. I'm going to go to work with you. I'm going to go out to dinner with you, all that. And then next Sunday afternoon, I'd like to meet up again here in the kitchen, all right? And I'd just like to tell you what I saw. Okay? So a week from now, if Jesus sat down with your family, after spending a week with your family, and he says, in one word, here's how I describe your family. It is, what do you hope that word is? And is it different than the current word coming to mind? Right? Disaster. I don't know what it is, sorry, right? But what would you hope that Jesus would look and go, that's just good? What would have to be different? Here's one. This was really close to me. What if you could actually reconnect with your sister or your brother? It's been a long time. What would that feel like? Because there's a day when the two of you were like tight, like best friends, shared everything. What would it look like if when you're with them, I feel more alive and I feel more joy and more peace just because they get me and I get them? What would that look like? You got a vision for it? Yeah, just listen, here's what you're doing. Well, that'll never happen because she's one of these, blah, 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 blah. Okay, just take all that crap and just put it over there. You can pick it up after church if you want, okay? Just have a vision for what it could be. Now, follow this. What's your intent? Do you really want that? Do you really want the two of you to come back together? Because intent says this, from now on, I'm not going to just hope. I am going to hope. I'm not going to just pray. I am going to pray. But I'm going to do whatever I can do to see that vision become a reality. And that's really, really important. I'm going to do what I can do. I can't do everything. I can't do their part. I can't fix them or change them. I can't make them respond in any way. But I can do what I can do. Right? And I'm willing to do it because I want it. I want us to make it. I want us to come back together. And I said this last week, I'll probably say it every week, all right? The reason that you don't have a good marriage, the reason that you're not getting along with your kids or your parents, the reason that you're not sober, whatever that is, I'm not saying it's because you don't really want it. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying this, until you want it and are willing to do whatever it takes, this stuff's not going to happen. All the grace in the world is not going to replace, now I have to get up and go do something. See, intent is that moment of truth that asks the question, all right? I draw a line in the sand, thin red line, whatever it is, and I step across it, and I don't look back and go, I'm going to do whatever I can do. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do from now on. Not someday, not down the road, and if circumstances change. From now on, I'm going to pursue that vision. So do you want it? Whatever you're thinking about right now, do you want it? And we're going to be really honest, because some of us are going, no, I don't want it. I probably should want it. I know Jesus wants me to want it, and they might even want it, but you know what? I don't want. I'm not ready to do that. I can't do that right now. I'm not going to do that. I don't want it. Okay. Let's just be honest, all right? So I choose not to move towards that person. Okay. What you're saying is, I choose not to change. I choose to stay in jail. I choose more slavery. I know what God says is true. I am choosing to disagree with what God says will actually make my life better. He might be right. I choose to not do it. No. All right? Oh, own it. Don't be a victim. I can't help it, and it'll never change. My marriage is always going to be like that. All right? Don't be a victim, all right? You have to own it. But please know this, all right, is that what you're down the road when this thing just absolutely blows apart, you cannot put your finger in God's chest and go, this is your fault. You can't even look at the other person and go, this is all your fault, because you weren't even willing to take one step in that direction. I'm not even saying it's going to work, but you tried. I did everything I could do. But you say, no, it's done. Well, let's say you don't say no. Okay, let's be positive, all right? Let's say you say yes. I'm ready. I want that, all right? I really want that to come back together. I'm willing to do whatever I can do. All right, then you have to rethink your current strategy, because your current strategy has landed here, right? And then intentionally get up out of this room in just a few minutes and go start working that strategy. This is the number one teaching that Jesus gave. I don't know if you've read your Bibles much, right? Like you think he talks about heaven a lot, or he talks about hell a lot. Hardly, not really, right? The number one teaching of Jesus is this: I have done something that makes impossible now possible, right? No matter who you are and what you've done, no matter how jacked up and broken your life is, I now make it possible, all right, for you to take all of your life and put it in the kingdom of God. You can live your life in the kingdom of God. Bring all your brokenness, all your addictions, all your relationships in here, okay? I'll take away all the separation. I'll set you free. You can now live your whole life in the kingdom of God. So now that the kingdom of God is available to you, you might want to repent. What do you mean? Rethink all the parts of your life and then build a new strategy. All right, on your own, you can do nothing. But Jesus says, I've done everything possible, so you don't ever have to be on your own again. So how about you just take this and just put it right there in the kingdom of God, and now let's get going. So let's get really, really practical, okay? Strategy. Ready? What's one thing you can do to move this relationship in a good direction? Just one. You're not going to save your marriage today. You're not going to reconcile with your son or daughter. And your sister's not going to look back at you and go, let's just forget about it and move on. It's just not going to happen. But what's one thing you can do? One. One step. That's a new strategy. It's one more step than you had planned today. It's a new strategy. So love means to provide and protect. What's something you could provide, invest in, do this positive that actually would take you towards that vision becoming a reality? Love also means I got to protect. What's something that's going on that is actually an obstacle to that vision ever becoming a reality in your life? What is something you need to eliminate and abandon so that this relationship has a chance? What am I talking about? I love my wife. I'm addicted to porn. This relationship will never be right until this is out of the way. I'm addicted to alcohol. I'm involved with another person, whatever that is. So what do I got to do? I've got to go to counseling. I got to call the church. I got to go back to AA. I don't know what you have to do, but it's never going. Your relationship is never going to be the way it needs to be until that is out of the way. So because I love you, I got to go work on this. I'm going to hold on to you, but I'm going back to meetings, and I'm going back to counseling, and I'm going back to rehab. I'm going back to whatever it takes. I love you so much, and I want this so much, I'm going to stop drinking altogether, because whenever I drink, our life just blows up. I love you more than I love a bottle, so here's what I'm going to do. That's what the veteran said, right? I picked up a bottle. I didn't pick up my son. And so he laid down the bottle, and he's trying to pick up his son again. That's what it takes, okay? So get out your program. We're almost done, all right? And so, again, I'm going to pray in just a minute, and then you can stick around as long as you want. Game doesn't start till like 6:30. You'll be fine, all right? So Here's what I want, all right? So the first one, grace. Grace that forgives and frees from sin. So what's something in your life, and you know, you can call it anything you want, you can call it a struggle, or you can call it whatever that, it's sin. It disagrees with what God says is true, and it's interfering with this relationship. It has nothing to do with them. All right? And what do you need to ask God to forgive you for? Again, you might want to write in code because people look over your shoulder and go, it's none of their business, all right? So let's go to the next level of grace. There's something that you've always said, that's just who I am. What needs to change about who you are that is on a God level that you can't do just by reading a book or something like that? So what is something that you know, I'm really scared to do this? So this woman in Indianapolis, I cannot imagine the level of fear when she went and she reported her husband who's going to lose his job. And then she doesn't have any money to feed her kids, but she's not a punching bag. So what level of grace do you need to go do what you need to do? Followed by this, all right, what is this relationship that you have going in your head, all right? And I want something better. I want something different than the past. I talked to 3 young men on our staff because when I explained what I was going to be teaching about this weekend, I said, if that brings up anything in you, just come talk to me. And here was this one young man said this, the vision I have for my marriage is to not have my parents' marriage. My dad was a pacifist and my mom was a drunk. I couldn't depend on her for anything. Here's the vision for my life, not that. Okay, that's a good vision, right? Now, what? Intent. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because here's the aha moment. How many times have you already looked in the mirror and went, I'm my dad. I'm acting just like it. I'm doing the same things. What are you willing to do, right? And are ready to do it? And if not, why not? And that would go back, probably the obstacle is going, I'm just not going to do this. It'd probably go back to the first 2. What's going on in your life that disagrees with what God says is true? All right? Now, the last one, strategy. All right? You can't make anybody do anything, but what can you do today? What can you do today? And just see where it goes. Grace, vision, intent, strategy. All right? Let's stand up. I'm done. I'm 1 minute over. That's like a record for Sunday, all right? So when I say amen, you're welcome to stick around for a few minutes. Kids ministry, they'll keep your kids for 10 minutes. I'm the boss. They will, all right? So I'm going to pray, and then if you want to sit back down and do this, if you want to get online this weekend on the discussion questions, that page, if you lose it, that page will be there on the discussion questions, and every week we're going to come in and fill those boxes with another area of our life. So let's pray. So God, this is not about other families, and this is not about other marriages, and this is not about other, sons and daughters and brothers and sisters. This is about ours. And even if it's not, a mess, and even if it's not, on the edge of destruction, if we do not pay attention to the most important relationships in our life, it is a matter of time until in an unguarded moment, we thought everything was fine, and then all of a sudden, it's just gone. They're just gone. And so, God, even if it's awesome right now, or even if it is papers have already been filed. God, what is one thing that I need to repent of and confess to you and ask for your forgiveness? And then what do I want? What am I willing to do? And what am I going to do when I walk out of this room in just a few minutes so that maybe that vision becomes a reality in my home? That's our prayer. It's only made possible because what Jesus has already done for us that we could not do for ourselves. So we prayed in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Hey, thanks for joining us. If you want prayer, you can go to flatirons.church.com/pray, and we'll be praying for you throughout the week. If you want to be part of what God's doing here at Flatirons, you can go to flatironschurch.com/give online. And if you'd like to tell us what God's been doing in your life, email mystory@flatironschurch.com, and we'd love to hear your story.